Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Marico Me. In my series, The New World Order Media and Press Releases. I'm going to do another investigation into my documents filed under the title Israel, Zionism. This is going to be 2010. Part 2. I think it's the little things we need to pay attention to so you can put the puzzle together for the big things. I keep saying that everything is connected. The Palladians, aliens, Greys, reptilians, the Bible, the history, ancient monuments, cuneiform tablets, Zacharias Stitchins, Freemasons, Kabbalah, Zionist Israel, Jesuits in the Vatican, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So connecting the dots is probably the biggest problem for people, to see how it's all goes together. With that said, I'll start out this one here with a couple characters, David de Rothschilds, and even Arnold Schwarzenegger, involved with apparently the Illuminati. How crazy is that? The Jones Report, 3/21/2010. You can look this stuff up by typing in these titles into the internet and searching this document. So it says, Plastics Jesus, hair, David D. Rothschilds, bears skull and bones belt. So even tie him in with the skull and bones, George Bush. The symbol for the Masons, they commonly use the skull and bones. Pirates in the pirate ships use the skull and bones. So I can't say that it's probably something nice. I think even the warning for poison is a skull and bones. Maybe there's a message in there for us. So Plastics Jesus, hair, David D. Rothschilds, bears skull and bones belt. January 12, 2010. Flashback, the return of Arnold's Nazi belt buckle. Are the elite mocking us with symbols of their dominance as they pose as the saviors of humanity? You get it? They tell us they're saving us while they're destroying us. Is that a mocking of the people? One gets that impression. Already David de Rothschilds, heir to the London branch of the Rothschild family, has been promoting an eco-stunt, as he rightly calls it below, where he will travel around the world in a recycled plastic boat powered by human fecal matter, a form of making lemonade out of lemons for an elite class that believes it is the hordes of unwashed masses who are trampling away upon Mother Earth. Or maybe that's just a populist perception of a wider depopulation agenda. Wow, that's quite an opening paragraph. Now he has been spotted promoting his Plastica boat while sporting a skull and bones belt buckle. So there he is. They caught him with his jacket open and they could see his belt buckle, which has a skull and bones on it. So that is David de Rothschilds, heir to the throne of the Rothschilds Empire in London. So he's sporting a skull and bones belt buckle, a universal symbol for death, piracy, and a key emblem of the Nazi regime. The photos are in an article hailing De Rothschilds as the Plastics Jesus, a disgusting moniker for the true eco-fascists. The Rothschild family stands to gain even more from carbon trading schemes than Al Gore does, all the while pretending to save the earth. Surely dictator-loving Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, while making a statement when he showed off his Nazi-issue death shed belt buckle in time and from Outdoor Magazine. So we got Time Magazine here. Who needs Washington? Here's Arnold Schwarzenegger with a skull and bones belt buckle. And here's David de Rothschilds with his model of a catamaran, I guess that he made out of plastic bottles. But he's going to do some kind of eco tour. As you may have heard, David de Rothschilds, 31 years old, and heir to the famous European banking fortune, is building a catamaran out of some 12,500 plastic water bottles and sailing it from the San Francisco to Sydney, Australia. At stopover islands on the route, he'll pick up and drop off temporary crew members, scientists, writers, artists, entrepreneurs, athletes, even Hollywood celebrities if they have environmental credibility, who will help him market his message. So there's another picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the buckle. So clearly we can link the skull and bones with the Rothschilds, Schwarzenegger's rise to power as the California governor, and all these elites. And something else amused my thinking, and I've shown it on previous videos. But in my collection of books, many I have I didn't even know I had, but the Live Earth Global Warming Survival Handbook. Look at this poor polar bear looking for going towards the bottle. We know this is all fabrications, that the temperature hasn't changed anywhere other than weather control with the sky spraying and HAARP systems. 77 essential skills to stop climate change. And again, I don't mean to sound silly, but you can't stop climate change. If you look at ice core samples and images on the internet, search that, you'll find picture websites where mile-deep core samples were taken in the Himalayas, Iceland, Alaska, all over the world. And they show that the rises and drops, ice ages, warming periods, ice ages, for thousands of years. It's unmistakable. So you can't stop climate change. But anyways, so I'm looking at some of the stuff in David de Rothschild's book here. That guy with the skull and bones belt buckle. And all the other crazy. I think one name they have for him is Supreme. So one just wonders where he's going to be in this whole thing. Mr. Supreme. So ride a bike. About 1/4 of the carbon emissions we produce pours out of the tailpipes of our vehicles. So he's suggesting to save the world, everybody ride a bike. Just the stuff in here is kind of silly if you think about it. Decongest downtown. Urban centers are like the Saudi Arabias of energy efficiency, the world's biggest sources of untapped energy savings. Downtowns are great places. Find a hero. Heroes save lives. The cape, the mask, the boring alter ego, and the poorly lit underground lair. That's all just icing on the cake. You're not a real hero until you've helped save something or someone. So to stop global warming, i.e. climate change, is find a hero is his solution. And he's got a handful of heroes there. All right. Just making another point about this Rothschild. Retrofit your career, mini beer sales, new investments in renewable energy could create 3.3 million jobs. Here's a picture of him on the back, so I guess it is the same guy. Who apparently wrote this book, is an adventurer and the founder of Adventure Ecology, an independent initiative focused on environmental awareness and action through education. De Rothschild was recently voted the Young Global Leader by World Economic Forum and a National Geographic Emerging Explorer. Share the driving, he recommends. Reuse the news. So you can use the newspaper to pick up the doggy stuff. That ought to save the world. Build a bat house. So I just keep finding some of this stuff a little amusing. So I don't know when he wrote this book, but apparently, pack a time capsule. If 1 million of us buried one time capsule each, people of the future would think we were pretty weird. So there's David de Rothschild with his skull and bones belt, sailing a boat across the ocean made out of plastic bottles. And Arnold Schwarzenegger with a belt, skull and bones. So anyways, that was just some of my documents and stuff I collected. There's another document here. Israeli unveils tank defense system of the future, 2010. Remember, every year I was paying attention to the news and printed out press releases. And when I did my research on watching videos or reading books, because I don't believe everything I read or see, I have those documents in these collections, etc., etc., etc. My visitations to the Jerusalem Post back then, just trying to find out what the heck is going on in the world. What are we to believe? So Israeli unveils tank defense system of the future. Yahoo News. Haifa, Israel. On a dusty, windswept field overlooking the Mediterranean, a small team of researchers is putting the final touches on what Israel says is a major game changer in tank defense. A miniature anti-missile system that detects incoming projectiles and shoots them down before they reach the armored vehicles. If successful, the trophy system could radically alter the balance of power if the country goes to war against Hezbollah, guerrillas in the neighboring Lebanon, or Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. Its performance could also be much wider implications as American troops and their Western allies battle insurgents in Iraq and Afghanistan. I like these words, insurgents. Think about the word itself, insurgent. So when you're battling a country, destroying everybody, like Iraq, and there's people who protest or want to get some food or milk for the children, they are called insurgents, and you destroy them. I think Abraham Lincoln, in his inaugural speech, mentioned insurgents about a dozen times. I need to find that speech, but I remember reading it way back then going, wow, that's weird. They've been using that word for people who resist being destroyed as insurgents. FYI. And of course, if you talk bad about the government, try to tell the truth about the shenanigans going on, you're an anti-government belligerent, and probably if they do some kind of martial law event and try to say that they need to, for everybody's protection, they need to disarm people. People who do not give up their guns will be called a terrorist. And I hate to say this, but I've said it before in the last couple of videos. Go on YouTube and check out some of those videos about martial law or Jade Helm or whatever, economic collapse, Nibiru, Planet X coming to crash into Earth or something, or pass by. The gloom and doom world being destroyed information is off the charts right now. There's even another document or website I found that there are websites that you can go look at, and it tells you where all the ships are in the Atlantic Ocean. It has a little thing you can click on, and it tells you the name of the ship and where it's headed to and how fast it's going. With satellites in space, they have this so they can control the whole thing, like they do with planes over the continent. But anyways, the news out there on January 11th was that there were no ships moving in the Atlantic. They were all mostly anchored off their ports or in the shipyard in ports. So no supplies were moving anywhere in the Atlantic, reportedly, on January 11th. And I looked it up on Snoops, and Snoops says that just sometime maybe there was a mistake with the website, or it can't be true. And I haven't found that Snoops has been not so very honest, probably part of the New World Order, New Age. Misinformation to we the people. So it's just a weird thing if there's no ships moving, and we all know gas prices are way low, which has to be the cause of some kind of gas war between nations, and I'm sure nations like Iran's income is by half or 1/3, so it's got to be a very destructive thing. And also, if it's so low, the refineries probably can't refine it. We could literally be using up all the gas, and part of a government plan or United Nations New World Order plan to deplete all the gas and deplete all the food. If something is coming, is that what they want to do? But no ships in the Atlantic is kind of spooky. Look it up. Alright, so get back to this trophy tanks these Israelis are testing and building. I think people will be watching the Israelis roll this thing out and see if they can get the hang of it, said John Pike, director of the military information website globalsecurity.org in Alexandria, Virginia. The future of the United States Army is riding on the proposition that something like this can work. I'm thinking again, I hardly think we need these tanks. Unless they don't want to fire off nukes and they want to find some way to battle the people, and of course we citizens don't have nukes. So is the next world war going to be against the elitist and the government, the police forces and the military, against the citizens of the world worldwide? That seems likely. FEMA camps, hollow point bullets, even 30,000 guillotines bought by the military, the government. Look it up, don't believe me. The trophy is believed to be the first of a series of so-called active defense systems to become operational. Remember, this is a 2010 issue here. Israeli weapons make Raphael, the developer of the trophy, says the system have been in the works for years, but the bitter experience of the Israelis' 2006 war with Hezbollah guerrillas in Lebanon gave the push an extra push. Project an extra push. We can cope with any threat in our neighborhood and more, said Gill, the trophy's program manager at Raphael. That's the name of the company. Citing security considerations, the company would not permit publication of his last name. So back in 2010, when I'm doing my research, I find documents like that. Year after year, going on 11 years now, this is what I've been doing. Quite thoroughly, if anybody's been watching my videos, reading entire books, highlighting everything. I've got boxes and boxes of cataloged photos, magazines, and all these documents. And these are the ones I printed out. I've got disc and disc and disc over the years. I could go get the boxes of the CDs. Remember we used to use those for storage? But anyways, around 2012, I started buying these. So there's one, 2012. Another one, 2012. So 90% of the documents that I read online, I did not print out. 80%. 2015. 2013-14. 2014-15. I kept having to buy new discs because I kept running out of space with all the stuff I was collecting. Photos, press releases, documents, and all kinds of stuff. Legal documents, 2012. So I got quite a stack here of these discs. So anyways, back to the document. Just FYI, I backed up everything. Back to the Israeli unveils tank defense system. Some comments by some readers. I think it's just a waste of time. Some country will come out with something to counter this. It is like a merry-go-round. It keeps going around in cycles. Another commenter says, cool. Make it on a larger scale. You have the perfect anti-missile system and use lasers to boot. People's attitude out there. Another commenter says, sweet. Israel kicking ass again. Rock on, my friends. To hell with the foes. Right here. Where my finger is. Just saying, this is what people think. This is what we're dealing with. Another commenter says, I guess all them Nazis, terrorists, and anti-Semites are not going to like this as well as the United Nothings. I guess he's making a joke about the nations, the United Nations. Too bad they can all pee off. He used the bad word. But then, why would Mossad, Israel's Nazi and terrorist extermination squad, so this guy's calling Israelis, the intelligence agency Mossad, Israel's Nazi and terrorist extermination squad, commit to peace while these groups exist? But then, since when did Jesus ever make peace with devils? So why should Israel make peace with Muslim devils, although they have tried very hard? You believe that? 1880, Theodore Herschel wrote the book, The Jewish State, and the Rothschilds, Rockefeller, elitist people started shipping over Ukrainian, Russian area Jewish folks and other places. World War I, they were shipping more people. I even read in one study that they had made a deal with the leader of Iraq, way before the Iraq War, to make life horrible for the Jewish people in Iraq so that they would go to Israel. So it's been a concentrated effort now for 135 years, moving millions of people into Israel, which was once a place where the Arabs lived. So the Arabs are being displaced, as we all know. 9/11 was an inside job. As admitted, even General Wesley Clark was told that they had plans to take down 7 nations. We know they very much want to take down Iran, which, by the way, is really not Arabs. I think it's largely white people that look like you or me or Germans, if you're white. Look at the pictures and you'll go, wait a minute, that looks like my cousin Joe or my friend Dave. So maybe that's why the Iranians are hated so much by the Israelis. They don't like, apparently, we non-Jew people. Anyways, moving on, all they care about is their weapons. If they weren't such a selfish, power-hungry nation, then they wouldn't need all those weapons. Your American tax dollars at work. They receive $15 billion in aid a year. Time to get rid of our politicians and get people that actually care about us in the U.S. Amen to that. So I guess some people would say that my research is a hate crime. I'm not supposed to poke my nose into things and find out why things are. Well, I'm sorry. I do think it is my responsibility and everybody else's responsibility, including all the good Jewish people here in the U.S. and the world. If you don't step up and you keep your mouth shut when you know something is wrong, well, you might be just as guilty as the perpetrators. Netanyahu tries to play down tensions with the United States. And I'm sure everybody is aware a lot of this stuff on their own, they own the media. This is a Associated Press release, writer. And so it's all for public consumption. It's not true. They want you to think one thing when it's actually another thing. Jerusalem. Israel's leader tried to play down the tensions with the U.S. on Sunday after a rocky meeting at the White House last week, saying that relations with Washington remain solid. So they don't want the USA people to catch on that, as like Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, don't worry about America, we control America. And all the politicians even running for president right now, February 2016, some of them have said the first person they're going to call if they get elected is Benjamin Netanyahu. They're Israel firsters. They're not the United States firsters. I think Israel should take care of itself, and the United States should take care of itself, and nobody should be conspiring to destroy any nation. But that's not what's going on right now in the Middle East, and in Europe, and in the United States. It seems like we're headed for an economic collapse, or some other kind of calamity that they're going to cause, and say it's a natural event. But don't you believe it. They're planning for it. They're preparing for it. The relationship between Israel and the U.S. is one between allies and friends, and it's a relationship based on years of tradition, Netanyahu said. And this is the guy that said some really nasty things in Fink's bar. So look up Benjamin Netanyahu thinks bar and see for yourself, and then decide for yourself. Forget what I say. Look it up, read it, and make a decision. Or just admit you don't know what you're talking about if you don't look these things up that I show you. I want people to disagree with me. I want people to go look it up. Then I want them to go, oh my God, maybe Rick's onto something. And many other people. I'm not particularly happy with InfoWars' Alex Jones show seemingly promoting the planet Nibiru approaching Earth. It seems a little suspicious to me. Let's see, we got planet Nibiru supposed to be incoming, planet X or something, Herculumbus. We got threats of a pole shift. We got threats of an economic collapse. We got threats of terrorism. We got threats of plagues. We got threats of earthquakes. We got threats of volcanoes. It just never ends. What's the truth? What's the lie? So I'm just a little suspicious of all these people bringing back this time of year the incoming Planet X going to crash into Earth thing. I think there's something evil going on. Just saying. Even if there are disagreements, Netanyahu says, these are disagreements between friends, and that's how they will stay. The U.S. has criticized Israel construction in East Jerusalem. And again, I think that's all for the appeasement of the people back here in the USA, not knowing that the USA supports Israel before anything else, because they have to, because they're controlled, as Prime Minister Sharon said, of Israel. The planned negotiations were thrown into doubt after Israel announced plans to build 1,600 new apartments for Jews in East Jerusalem. They're taking the Palestinians' property block by block. Israel made the announcement while Vice President Joe Biden was visiting, drawing sharp condemnations from Washington and calls to cancel the construction plans. Yeah, that'll happen. Not. Israeli settlement action and insult Obama aid. I'm completely convinced, and you can look up photos, I think Obama went to the Wailing Wall and put that little hat on and had to have meetings with these elitist, Zionist, Rothschild, Rockefeller kind of people before he became president, and he got the nod and the wink, meaning you're in. They got to be yes men, they're puppets. But it shouldn't be very difficult for anybody to see that they really don't look out for the USA people, except for the 3% of gay people. And apparently they're going all out on that issue. As Obama said in his inaugural speech, his two highest priority issues were the gay marriage agenda and the gun control measure. Strange. When there are much more looming problems. It was an affront, it was an insult, but most importantly, it undermined this very fragile effort to bring peace to that region, said David Axelrod, one of President Obama's closest advisors. Israel's announcement of plans to build 1,600 housing units in mostly Arab East Jerusalem came March 10th during a visit by U.S. Vice President Joe Biden that had aimed to encourage the first indirect Israeli-Palestine talks since Israel's 2008-2009 offensive in Gaza. So again, my pointing out here that back in 2010, I was paying attention to all this stuff. And year after year, 10 plus years, I suppose a person could formulate an opinion if one had studied enough. Yes? I don't want to think that anybody would want to be an ignoramus and not do all this homework and try to render an opinion like most people do. That kills me. Prehistoric building found in modern Israeli city. Lots of propaganda out there. I know archaeological-wise, they're going crazy all over the Middle East. Remember, they got those satellites in space that can X-ray the ground. So they've discovered untold new locations for debris, ancient cities under the sand. And I suppose even in the United States, minerals and other resources with the high-tech equipment. So they want to gain control over all those things all over the earth. And part of the New World Order will be forcing people into the cities, and under the pretext of sustainability, biodiversity, overpopulation, etc., terrorism, and all this other stuff, they want to take away everybody's rights and all the properties. And they want to kill off, according to the USA Georgia Guidestones, a good portion of the population, as we were seeing with David D. Rothschild's book on global warming, i.e. climate change. And I've gone over that in my previous videos by some people with serious PhDs and Nobel Peace Prizes, scientists, indicating that there is no statistical data of any obvious, measurable change in the temperature on planet Earth. Other than, as I keep saying, the visible go outside and look up sky spraying and HAARP systems, and the normal period of global ice ages and warmings around the world, and the sun cycles, even the Secretary of the United Nations, whatever her name was, I'll have to look that document up. I'm sure I'll run across it in this collection, in this series of videos, who said that global warming wasn't really about any weather problem. It was about how to destroy capitalism and bring about a one world order, which is communism, which is basically slavery. Some people think, oh wow, socialism. Yeah, well, just wait and see. Nobody's going to take care of anybody that isn't going to be out there working and have a microchip and monitored, and you're only going to get enough to eat and drink what you need and sleep in a small unit. They don't want anybody to build families or wealth. That's what communist is. Alright, so archaeologists have uncovered remains of an 8,000-year-old prehistoric building, as well as ancient flint tools in the modern city of Tel Aviv, Israel Antiquities Authority announced Monday. I'm amiss here. Prior to the Great Flood, 7,000 years ago, wasn't there a whole advanced civilization on Earth with evidence by monuments all over the Earth, pyramids, Sphinx, big stones at Baalbek, Lemedon, the lines you can only see from a plane in Peru, Machu Picchu lines, caves, whole cities cut out of Ecuadorian caves in the Andes Mountains that step all the way down into the ground level at the Pacific, apparently go underground and pop up at some island, including the Hopi Indians, who said back then, before the Great Flood, some intelligent beings, advanced, were helping them build underground facilities to survive the flood, and apparently ancient indigenous people all over the world have similar tales. If you do any study on the world archaeology, read on the magazines and all this stuff. Even that one I went over, Transylvania Sunrise, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism, they found this in Romania, a whole scientific complex, even protected by a force field, that killed several people when they tried to get in this thing, which they discovered by accident. Apparently somebody was on this mountain and saw something strange on the ground and picked it up almost like a lever, and he just disappeared, incinerated in front of somebody else's eyes, and that other somebody with a couple people went over there, picked it up, and disappeared, and that brought the whole issue to the attention of the governments. And according to Peter Moon and Roku, another author on that book, Transylvania Sunrise, That's when the Freemasonic Bilderberger Illuminati groups got involved from the United States, forced their hand. So go look that stuff up or go look at my videos. My point is, there's lots of proof there were ancient societies and that there wasn't prehistoric people 8,000 years ago. It was likely a much more advanced society on Earth, and I don't know why they want to try to keep that from people. The building is the earliest structure ever found in Tel Aviv and changes what archaeologists previously believed about the area in ancient times. The three-room structure is believed to have been built in the Neolithic period, when humans went from a nomadic existence of hunting and gathering to living in permanent settlements and engaging in agriculture. So anyway, somebody's making a fib there. There appears to be a lot more evidence that societies were more advanced than they are today. For example, those stones at Bellback, bigger than school buses or three-story buildings, were quarried from miles away, and that kind of task could not be done today. Israel to build 700 apartments in East Israel. Ramallah, West Bank. Israel announced Monday it's building nearly 700. So before we saw they were doing, 1,600 apartments. Now they're building 700 new apartments for Jews in East Jerusalem, where Palestinians hope to set up the capital of a future state. The U.S., Palestinians, and European Union condemned the plan, a fresh setback to American efforts to restart Mideast peace talks. Obama, U.S. wants Israel to cancel building plan. Remember, these are things I was reading back in 2010. Jerusalem, the U.S. is pressuring Israel to scrap a contentious East Jerusalem building project, whose approval has touched off a most serious diplomatic feud with Washington in years, said Israeli officials on Monday. All right, more things here. Ireland expels Israeli over forged passports. Dublin, Ireland announced Tuesday it was expelling an Israeli diplomat in punishment for the alleged Mossad, Israeli intelligence agency, used the forged Irish passports to assassinate a top Hamas official in Dubai. So it's in Dublin, but the assassination was in Dubai, which is off of the coast of Saudi Arabia. Israel has refused to confirm or deny its agents' involvement in the January slaying of Hamas official Mohammed Mudhob, who Dubai officials have said was killed in his hotel room by people posing as holidaymakers in the oil-rich Arab Emirates. They said assassins using 32 fake passports, including 8 depicting fictional Irish citizens, participated in the hit squad. The Irish Department of Foreign Affairs and Ireland's National Police Force, the Garda Síochána, launched parallel investigations, but said their appeals for information from Israel fell on deaf ears. June 2010. All right, we got some comments here from people. I like reading the comments on my videos so people can see what other people are thinking. Give us a broader point of view. I was an anti-Israel for a long time. I would tell my wife, look at what they're doing to those poor Arabs, blowing up their houses and taking their land. And then 9/11 happened, and I woke up that those animals can only be dealt with in one way. Well, we know 911 was an inside job. We know Building 7 wasn't hit by a plane. We know it was pulled and it fell down like it evaporated. and so many books. Judy Wood's 911, Where Did the Buildings Go? Webster Tarpley exposes everything on 911, and so much more in the videos. Architects and engineers all over the world have signed off. The Twin Towers with all those steel girders and all that and concrete, not made out of wood or nothing, could not have just fell perfectly straight down. You know, like any other metal tall structure, it could have crumpled over or something. And to have both of them fall exactly the same and disintegrating all the concrete, I don't need to get into it. So this guy here now hates the Arabs because he believes 911 was done by Arabs with box cutters. Another commenter says, here's a perfect example of what your terrorist, assisted and fully backed by the U.S. Since 1948, it is time to cut relations with the Israel government. Actually, it is time to cut these corrupt relationships with the entire world. See, people in the United States don't want to see our nation go down. The biodiversity, where they take half the land and fence it off, forbidden human beings to go on it, with a buffer zone added onto that, and people forced out of the rural areas into cities. You know it's just an intentional corralling everybody for their destruction. People are not going to be allowed back out into the countries and the territories to have ranches and farms and grow. There is an intentional destruction of humanity going on. So it appears. There is more intelligence in a used sheet of toilet paper than there is in most messages posted on Yahoo. Yes, Pokies, the Jews are out there. They own the media. That's what one commenter says. Another one says, Israel learns from the best. Himmler and Goebbels would have been so proud of the methods used by Israel government. And I continue to say again, look it up. Who Financed Hitler? By James and Suzanne Pools. Clearly shows that the Illuminati, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and all those people, including apparently involving the Bush family, financing and involving dealings with the German regime, building up Hitler's Germany, which would have never been built up otherwise. So the bad Jews were conspiring in all this, and I believe it was a lot of good Jews and other people that wound up in the work farms, factories as slaves. And a lot of them died, likely by starvation or whatever. They were only given what was needed so they could stay alive. And the dead bodies were put in the gas ovens. Just like in the United States, a lot of people elect to be cremated when they die. So they call it the Holocaust is the biggest lie. Did a lot of Jews die? Yes. Did a lot of other people die? Yes. Was it pre-planned by the Illuminati banksters, Zionist folks? Yes. Another commenter says, killing off Hamas members is doing the world a favor. Let the Mossad agent go. There goes that phone again. Gotta work to make some money. Moving on with the comments over Ireland's expels Israeli over forged passports. Please free U.S. from Israel. That's what the commenter says. It's not a relationship, it's extortion. It's made America's soul sick. Had somebody knock on my door, one of my neighbors, to say hi. Alright, so please free the United States from Israel. It's not a relationship, it's extortion. And it's made America soul sick with Israel's toxic, manipulating deceit. That's what this commenter says. So again, my point is, here I am trying to find out what's going on. Fair enough. Reading the press releases and reading the comments from many different people. Reading books studying now for 11 years in every day, dedicated my life to this, to find out what the heck is going on in the world. Because way back then, my business was suffering. All the sales were plummeting. People were losing home from Argentina, Florida, Michigan, Canada, California, Germany. Economic destruction was going on. Meanwhile, I find out that Alan Greenspan is having hearings that you can look up, congressional hearings. It said that they were running a program called economic destruction. In one place when I first looked it up, and I have a pretty good memory, as I've shown in my videos, but I saw the words creative economic destruction, and when I tried to find those exact words again, I found it difficult, as if somebody had filtered them out. But I remember I always print things out, so as I filter through these documents, I'll probably run across it. Plus some other amazing material that I discovered over the last 11 years. So this is a treasure trove of information to re-look at on these videos that I've collected over 11 years, which would enable anyone to formulate some kind of general opinion about what the heck is going on in the world. Yes? No? Alright, gets worse. Israeli subs with nukes in Gulf. Israel is planning to permanently station a submarine carrying nuclear cruise missiles in the Persian Gulf. The Sunday Times reported on Sunday. Israeli submarines have visited the Gulf before, but the decision has now been taken to ensure a permanent presence of at least one of the vessels. So it's not so far-fetched for me to think that that sub with nukes could be used for some sinister purposes. Let's say you launched a nuke from the Gulf towards Israel, and you said another country did it. So then you could retaliate. False flags, sacrificing some of your own for the greater win of the battle of controlling the world. They've done it before. Everybody knows this. 911. Why did a lot of one Jewish business abandon a $50,000 security deposit and its lease, and a lot of other people didn't show up to work during 911? And some people made some short moves on American Airlines stock. And of course the Israeli Jewish folks were on the roof in a building in New Jersey videoing the event. And some other Israelis were arrested in white vans with apparently bombing materials. And conveniently all set loose quickly back to Israel. And apparently some of them went on TV bragging about what they had done. Just saying. It is what it is. And I'm obviously not anti-Semite because I believe in Jesus, and Jesus was a Jew. And I learned all I learned from people I call good Jews, like Henry Mackay, PhD, author in Canada, who wrote the book, Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. Or Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book. Or many others. Like I said, I've been studying, and even on my Freemasonry and Satanism series, from 66, number 66 in the series, to 71, I completely read several books. 66, 76, 78, 79, 80. 6 different books. One of them called Bloody Zion. Another one, American Jew Moves to Israel. Go look at those videos. And the way I do my book review is I highlight passages and I turn the book over and show it like I do with these documents. I don't want anybody to believe me. I study books, press releases, other articles, Plan 2000, Patriot Act, all kinds of documents. Look at pictures, magazines, watch tons of videos. So moving back on this, Israel's planning on permanently stationing submarines, nuclear subs, in the Gulf. Israeli submarines have visited the Gulf before, but the decision has now been taken to ensure a permanent presence of at least one of the vessels. So Israel has nukes, but it doesn't want anybody else to have nukes. And apparently, throughout the last 2,000 years, almost 200 countries have had trouble with the Jewish people who moved there and had to make them leave or pass certain laws on their behavior and stuff. Why? The paper claims that the government has decided to station at least one of 3 submarines armed with nuclear missiles permanently within striking distance of Iran in the Persian Gulf. According to the article, the submarines are moving to the Persian Gulf in response to the growing threat to Israel from Syria, Iran, and Hezbollah. The diesel-powered submarines are Dolphin class and were built in Germany to Israeli specifications. All right, another document here. What is this? Gaza flotilla responsible for 15 activists killed. So there was a flotilla, a ship trying to bring supplies to Gaza, and 15 activists on the ship were killed. A race to contain the damage. Israel to lose closest ally. So apparently there was a big hoopla about a ship trying to bring some supplies, humanitarian aid, to Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu said, no way that ship is going to land. And then the activists, some very good people, were all killed. So we got some comments on that. While I support Israel 100%, moving the subs into the Gulf will likely do more harm than good. So these are talkbacks on the ships going into the Gulf. That is not a very smart move for Israel and is clear provocation to what Iran recognizes as a legitimate sphere of influence. Entering in this specific area is a direct challenge to what Iran believes to be its natural sphere, in this sense Cyrus the Great. Most likely the area of operations of the Dolphins in the Gulf of Oman, with only occasional forays into the Gulf. This will give the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, the ability to strike Iranian targets nationwide before they can even begin to see what is happening to their backwards military force. So it is a little spooky that they are so close. I mean, today, tomorrow during the Super Bowl, Israel may start launching nukes at Iran. What would that do to the whole world? Would the President of the United States declare war on Iran, declare martial law? Would our whole world change? All these scenarios, all these possibilities. And shouldn't we citizens speak up and be concerned? There's always that little thing in the back of the mind that you always hear after the events happen. If only we had known, we could have done something. That's always what's said after something. Well, we do know. We see the warning signs in the United States. Something seems to be looming, all kinds of fear threats to the American people and the world. And the plan, well, I've gone over it in hundreds of hours on my videos. I've read the books. All those authors, all those investigators, all that evidence, right back up into Kennedy and the fake moon landings. Can't be wrong. 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing. The USS Ship Liberty off of the coast of Egypt, bombed to smithereens by the Israelis. They wanted to blame it on Egypt because the U.S. and Egypt were becoming pals. That did not bode well for Israel. Our men on the ship waved flags and tried to shout at the jets, we're America, we're your friends. And the Israeli jets just bombed and bombed and bombed and bombed relentlessly. Obviously, in every attempt possible to sink it and let no one live. Yet that wasn't the case. And what happened in America? That news never got out like it should. It was suppressed by the president and the powers that be. This should be an adequate response to Iran's threats. So let me see if I got this straight. Israel's a dot on the map. We've overthrown Iraq, Afghanistan, Tunisia, Egypt, and all the other countries. Syria now completely being demolished. And they keep on making threats and they want to demolish Iran. So all the neighborhoods on a whole continent are evil, except the dot on the map, whose people for 2,000 years were run out of every country they went to. And even 2,700 years ago, the Romans and other entities ran them out of Jerusalem and the land of Canaan, now called Palestine, which is occupied Palestine by Israel. So for almost 3,000 years, these Jewish people have been having problems. Lest we forget when God sends Jesus, who is preaching, treat others how you want to be treated, and who was becoming very popular. A Jewish guy, Jesus. The leaders of the Jewish community there were jealous and wanted to shut him up. He wasn't the Messiah they wanted. He wasn't going to be King David or King Solomon and rule with an iron fist and take over the world like they wanted. So they wanted him crucified. Pontius Pilate said, no way. I don't want this on my head. I'm paraphrasing. And the Jewish people in the audience said, oh, let it be on our heads and our children's heads. So again, a whole continent now. It's been there for thousands of years. And it seems that it gets in turmoil and chaos every time there's a crusade against it. Back from 1000 to 1300 AD, John Robinson wrote Dungeons, Fire, and Sword. I went over that in a video. Horrible way they went over there and murdered the Shiites and Sunnis and Arabs in the Middle East time and time again. 8 times in 300 years. So this should be adequate response to Iran's threats. Israel shows conning with tenacity and lower intestinal fortitude. This is a commenter here, not me. All this stuff I'm reading. I formulate my own opinion and I speak it. While in America we still have the First Amendment, the right to free speech and free thinking and to research. And I'm very confident if they do manage to disarm we people in America, the free speech will be out. You say anything bad about the king and you lose your head. That's how it works over there. Now Mr. Ahmadinejad had something to think about. With those Israeli boomers in the Gulf, he will have about 10 to 12 minutes to respond before he gets irradiated and turned into ash. Got to give these Israeli Jewish Zionist folks some credit for vicious thinking and vicious acting. You're absolutely right. If you ask Saudi Arabia and Jordan, or most of the Arab countries' leaderships, if they would like Israel to attack Iran, the response will be a resounding heck yes. But here's the rest of the story. If you ask them how about Iran attacking Israel, double heck yes. Basically, they hope Iran and Israel will wipe out each other. Oh my. I don't want anybody to wipe out anybody. Here's another commenter. As a Catholic, I fully support Israel's right to exist and defend itself. Israelis' military history and tactics are not taught in Americans' military, and for good reason. How a little country surrounded by enemies can kick ass time and time again is unfathomable. So beware, it won't be Israel that will be destroyed, quite the opposite. Don't mess with God's chosen people. You have been given fair warning. Well, I'm reminded of in Revelations, the last book of the Bible. It says, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not. All right, I got another one here. It's another magazine over there, a newspaper in Israel, called Haaretz.com, I think. And you got all these little icons you can click. Jewish World, Stranger Than Fiction, National, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel Attractions, Israel News. So I think this one here is Israel News. And here are some titles. A warning to Mr. Biden. We negotiate like we drive. So Mr. Biden was visiting Israel. And one commenter says, we negotiate like we drive. And another headline here, Jews who want to see Jews leave Israel. We know a lot of Jews don't want Zionism or world domination from Jerusalem or the Tel Aviv. And another guy article says, I envy the people who hate Israel. I don't hate Israel. I just think we got a big problem here, premeditated New World Order plans that I think most people will agree because it's come out of the mouth of George Bush Sr., Jr., Clinton, Obama, the Pope, Kissinger. The leaders in Britain and everywhere are telling us a New World Order is coming. And we can clearly see they're preparing for it. Fear of peace will be the death of Israel. All right, some more comments here. The 5 million American Jews form less than 2% of the U.S. population. So in the United States, we have 5 million Jewish people, 2% of the population. Heck, maybe it was 10 million and it's 4%. Neither here nor there. Yet from within this tiny percentage, an even smaller percentage, the Israel Political Action Committees, is able to wield disproportionately huge influence. Why? They control all of our politicians. You don't get into office unless you get past muster. Remember, it's their money. He who has the most money usually wins the election. So it says here, why do they have so much power? Originally, the reason was based on Holocaust guilt, that this oppressed people should have a homeland and unconditional U.S. support to that end. Remember, they created our Federal Reserve in cahoots with President Woodrow Wilson, which I understand from my research that he was being blackmailed for some personal issues. And once they controlled the Federal Reserve in the USA in 1913, they had the stranglehold on America, and they've been sucking the money out of this country to no end. Buying up the world and causing wars and everything. Has metastasized into an organization that with its money and political influence is able to influence every congressional and Senate seat. It's just what I said. It's just more supporting data by other people. All politicians are terrified of the consequences of not towing its line. Thus we have a skewed U.S. policy vis-a-vis Israel. Another commenter says, Obama is getting some pretty sorry and worn-out advice from losers like Dennis Ross and Berninsky and the Carter retread. The more you push Israel against the wall, the more public will rally around Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu. You leftist losers are on the wrong side of history again. Land for peace has been tried in the past and failed. The Palestinians don't want peace. They want all Israel. Well, I think we can confidently say that Israel wants all of Palestine. Israel and Netanyahu both have too many friends outside the administration for Obama to really matter. Obama was mentored for 20 years by an openly bitter anti-Semitic black nationalist. Another commenter says, Hamas just wants its land back. Israel is still taking more land outside of Israel. Hamas' position is justified. Israel's position is driven by greed and arrogance. Another commenter says, Obama a friend of Israel? Israel a liability to America? More like America a liability to Israel. Rebuild all destroyed shoals until the temple is finished. So this is a religious thing. They want this temple to be finished, to King Solomon's temple, to bring about prophecy. What then? Israel got what it wanted, no peace. I cannot say all of Israel wanted this to happen, but the government and Jewish extremists have finally bursted a bubble with Washington. Another commenter says, all I'm saying is that then it's going to be a very bloody nose either for Obama or Netanyahu, because the U.S. administration there is simply too much at stake now after Biden's, Clinton's, and Axelrod's comments from the last weekend. Again, here I am in 2010 doing my research, just going through my saved documents and sorting them out and cataloging them. I thought I'd put them to use by making these videos. Jewish state must keep building and population whole with Jerusalem, with Jews and Christians. Well, obviously this commenter from San Francisco doesn't realize that Israel does not want Christians. We went over that in a previous video. They burn the Bible. And worse, if you're a Christian there, you're likely, according to my investigation, to find a bomb in your mailbox. Another commenter here. The world is wondering how a country as big as a city with a 7.5 million population has so much power in the world. Seems here in the U.S. that people are seeing a relationship. Yeah, the United States is controlled by the Freemasonic Illuminati lodges and temples and organizations, Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberger groups, Bohemian Grove, and so many more names, the Jesuits, the Vaticans, the Zionists. You can't get into political office unless you're one of them. And all the citizens are walking around like zombies and not doing anything about it. In fact, well, almost without exception, the people who had driven the Western world to the brink of economic collapse are supporters of Israel. And they plan on collapsing the United States. That's the big secret. And a lot of people will die, just like the Russian Revolution in 1917. Oh my, this is 2016, so 2017 is a year away. On the 100th anniversary, will millions of Americans be starving to death? Will there be a nuclear explosion in some harbor? And all shipping stopped and the supermarkets emptied in 3 days? Then let the games begin. Prophecy says, father eating son like cannibals. Will it really happen? Well, I think if we don't think about it, talk about it, and take responsibility for our country, it likely seems like it's likely going to happen. Netanyahu and Yushi's stunt already hurt U.S. regional policy and relations in many places around the world. It looks like Israel is running and or dictating U.S. foreign policy. Well, I've been going over my material. I think you can pretty much say that's a given. After the Second Lebanon War, Human Rights Watch reported about the human tragedies caused by the indiscriminate aerial bombing, cluster bombs delivered in civilian areas. Those are horrible bombs. They pop up out of the ground and they throw shrapnel 360 degrees. And they're in the ground. So later on, even after the war, people can't find them and accidentally step on them. They keep on murdering. They're apparently banned by the Geneva Convention and stuff like that. But they use them, just like depleted uranium shells used by the United States in Iraq. It's killing that just keeps on killing. Fukushima. Killing that keeps on killing. Sky spraying, HARP systems, vaccines, vaccine doctors assassinated, conveniently dying everywhere, investigating these things. So much more. First, the Human Rights Watch came under attack by the AIP, Israel PACs, Political Action Committees, and several parallel powers, and was branded as anti-Semite barbarian organization. So the Human Rights Organization, Watch, came under attack. So if you report on anything that goes on over there, you're an anti-Semite. Like that's something horrible. What does it mean? It really doesn't have a meaning, by the way. The people over there don't have any Hebrew DNA in their blood. Most of those people in Israel. And as it says in the book of Revelation, last book in the Bible, Revelation 9, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not. A lot of people think they're Khazarians, Ashkenazis, from Germany, Ukraine, in the northern area. They're all white as white can be. All right, moving on. First, thanks for taking the time to read my post. Second, I don't know enough about either to agree or disagree with you about the U.S. military, both being scoundrels and anti-Semitic. Third, the American public, or any public for that matter, usually respond to what they believe. And as we all know, everybody believes what they watch on the nightly news, which is owned by these people. City. Another one here. Mary says, when the U.S. military sensibly voices that Israelis' illegal annexation of the territories is a threat to our soldiers' security, and suddenly the miserable catching of the apex ring incredibly hollow. A lot of comments on this one. The U.S. should pull back all armed forces from the Middle East. That would show the Israeli government who is currently protecting the state of Israel. No more U.S. troops in the Middle East. No more security for Israel. Well, Israel controls those Jewish people there and elsewhere, control a great portion of the world's wealth. I don't think they need 6 or 9 billion a year from the USA to continue the lopsided economic situation. Could really do a lot of good helping the American people. We don't need to have all those ships bringing goods to America. We could be making them here, growing the food here. But they've been destroying that in America for quite a while, intentionally. Google has been linking the Haaretz and Yet for the past few days in their news page. Hundreds of thousands, if not more, Americans have seen the anti-U.S. headlines from the newspapers, as well as the anti-American sentiment in the comments section. Like I said, I've been studying this stuff for 11 years, and I read the papers, I read the comment sections. A lot of times I type essays, I get back and forth commentary with people. And for a couple years I was doing that for hours every day. And I was doing it so I could get educated as to what the heck is going on in the world. And my conclusion is, it's seemingly about a 50-50 divide here between God-believing good people and non-God-believing people who think the might makes right. And if you can beat somebody up, you can take what they got. So you got the good people and you got the bad people. You got the givers and the people who care and the people who want to deceive and cheat us, including our kids with the cartoons. I don't know if the average Israeli is aware of it, but the U.S. sends billions, yes, you read it, billions of dollars worth of aid in cash and weapons to Israel. This crisis was Israel's choice. The policy of humiliating America's envoys, the Secretary of State, and Vice President Biden was clear. So it made a lot of hoopla in the news back then. Since when does a sovereign state have to abide by the dictates of another against building in its own capital. So some Israeli citizens said that we shouldn't be butting our nose and they're building stuff in their own capital. They could take all the Palestinians' land right up to the last inch. What did that one leader over there in Israel say? Menachem Begin? 100 Arabs are not worth one Israeli fingernail. What does the Talmud say about us non-Jews? Me. You. If you're not a Jew. The best of the goyim are to be killed. Noahic law passed in the United States makes it illegal to be a Christian, so I've studied. And the preference of killing the Christians is with guillotines. And if you look up on the internet, the U.S. government has purchased 30,000 guillotines. You can't make this stuff up. Scary. Prime Minister Sharon, I keep saying this, said, don't worry about America, we control America. Rothschilds, Rockefeller, banksters, Chases, Morgans, playing games, crashing the system, taking trillions and adding it to the deficit that we owe. The noises coming out of the White House suggest that Obama doesn't want Netanyahu's head, just want Netanyahu's head. He wants it served up on a platter. And I'm not sure that even the American Political Action Committee can get Netanyahu out of this one. That's a bunch of crazy talk. We don't put politicians' heads on platters. After the smear and degradation campaign waged by Israel for the last year, why should anyone be surprised that our government has finally gotten fed up? Some guy in Houston, Texas. The U.S. is playing with nitro, and it may well blow up in its face. Obama plays hardball with those he perceives as weak. What he may find out is that he gets sandbagged. I can see Israel and Saudi Arabia, who both fear Iran and its nukes. Iran doesn't have any nukes. And Iran would not nuke anybody because they don't want to be nuked. Just common sense. Getting together with a mutual strike against Iran. This, of course, would be done in secret between Riot Head and Jerusalem. So they do want to nuke Iran, so they have to make it look like Iran is the enemy. And wait a minute, earlier on in this video, I guess Israel has a nuke sub there in the Gulf. A game war plan, anyone? The U.S. is Israel's and soon-to-be only friend. Israel is fast becoming a liability to the United States. All right, any more here? I think one more. Sorry to say, but I see absolutely no way out for him. If he continues to defy Israel's only important friend, this is Benjamin Netanyahu, he and Israel will pay a tremendous price, which will have a deep long-term effect on the size of the wallet of the average Israeli citizen. Another commenter said, this president has lost sight if he had any of which side he is on. All right. Here we go. New aid ship heads to Gaza. Israel vows to stop it. More supporting information for what I talked about earlier. New aid ship heads to Gaza. Israel vows to stop it. And remember, this is just my research I did back in 2010. Had all this stuff in boxes. I thought it was time to do something. So I'm making this series of videos, the New World Order, media, and press releases. Istanbul. An aid ship trying to break the blockade of Gaza could reach Israel's 20-mile exclusion zone Friday. An activist said, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed the ship will not reach land. I think we read earlier here that 15 activists were killed. By Friday afternoon, the ship V, the coast of Gaza, in international waters. Irish Nobel Peace Prize former head of the UN was among the 11 passengers. Oh my. The Irish vessel was named after the American college student crushed to death by an Israeli army bulldozer while protesting house demolitions in Gaza. Netanyahu has hotly rejected calls to lift the blockade in Gaza, insisting that it prevents missile attacks on Israel. The Rachel Corrie's cargo, name of the ship, of concrete is also a problem because Israel considers that to have military uses. Israel has rejected demands for an international panel to probe Monday's deadly commando raid on the aid ship, where apparently all those well-known good people of the world were killed, saying it can conduct a professional, impartial investigation on its own. I wonder how many people believe that. The Turkish activists' deaths on the aid ship, Turkish activists, increased tensions in the Middle East, especially with Turkey, an important ally of Israel. On Thursday, Prime Minister Recep Erdogan of Turkey called Israel's actions a historic mistake. His deputy on Friday announced that Turkey was reducing its economic and defense cooperation with Israel. Deputy Prime Minister Bülent Arınç said all deals with Israel are being evaluated. And we got some commenters for some comments by people. Just like to get a view of what other people think. That's what I was doing years ago. How do I formulate my own opinion if I don't know what other people are thinking and all the evidence? Can't believe they actually attacked the flotilla. I blame both sides. The Israelis for being the heavy-handed killers they normally are, and the activists for thinking the Israelis would not be aggressive and actually attack them. What cowards these animals are. They are attacking a humanitarian ship with unarmed civilians on board. How they managed to murder these individuals and wound dozens is beyond comprehension. The civilians in the Gaza have been under blockade from all sides, and they've been forced to smuggle in goods through tunnels, and yet the Israeli government has the nerve to point to these very tunnels out, which they have been targeting for years now, as one of the reasons there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. What hypocrites. Another commenter says, Israel is not afraid of a few boats. Boats sink, people on board get killed. Israel is scared of what the humanitarian flotilla is bringing. Not humanitarian aids like cement, food, hospital supplies. Israel is scared of some people with interest of unblocking the siege on Gaza. So it's just they don't want people to be witnessing what's going on. In a civilized world, should people of any nation on earth respect people who kill others for any reason at all besides absolute self-defense? Don't grab a tiger by the tail unless you're prepared to get bit. It is not wise to mess with the Israelis, and this propaganda flotilla grabbed the tiger's tail. Personally, I think anything these swear word Palestinians would say would most likely be a lie. Alright, moving on here. Trying to wrap up this video. Australia to expel Israeli diplomat. Alright, Carabella, Australia. Australia moved to expel an Israeli diplomat Monday after investigators concluded Israel was responsible for forging 4 Australian passports that were used in the slaying of a Hamas operative in Dubai. We talked about that earlier. So they went to Dubai, which is off of the coast of Saudi Arabia, and killed a Hamas leader, assassins, sent assassins in there. These are not the actions of a friend, he said, so Australia is expelling the Israeli diplomat. Smith said Israel had been asked to withdraw a diplomat. An Israeli embassy official was not immediately available for comment on Monday. All right, here's just some off-the-topic subjects here I wanted to talk about that are interesting. The Seal of Solomon. I keep talking about occult, witchcraft, Mystery School of Babylon, Freemasons, Zionists, Jewish folks into magic, Kabbalah, Jesuits, and all the secrets in the vaults of the Vatican, even a gigantic picture of Lucifer. Hollywood, into psychics and all that stuff, witchcraft. So they want to rebuild King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. That's part of the prophecy for taking over the world. So just as a FYI, or even my own curiosity, back then I looked a little bit into what is the Seal of Solomon. I'm kind of a technical researcher. I want to know, what is this all about? Come on. Magic. King Solomon's temple. Archaeologists digging everywhere. All these black art projects by the government. CERN. Statue of Shiva up front, the goddess of destruction. 666 in the logo. Football halftime shows, all satanic rituals. Grammy satanic rituals. Olympic opening satanic rituals. Justin Bieber satanic rituals. Katy Perry satanic rituals. On all the TV shows and programming. We've all seen it if anybody's bothered to look. What's going on? Everybody doing the one eye thing. The devil sign like Sandy Hook. And so many more. So in medieval Jewish, Christian, and Islamic legends, the Seal of Solomon was a magical signet ring said to have been possessed by King Solomon, which variously gave him the power to command demons, genies or jinn, or speak with animals. Now I know a lot of people have been mind controlled these days and don't believe in God. But this is what they think. The magic, witchcraft is. King Solomon had this magic ring. He could call forth demons. Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma, got all his information from a so-called master, an interdimensional being, maybe a demon. Helena Blavatsky, Theosophist Society, the forefront of the New Age movement, part of the New World Order thing, got all her information from some masters, interdimensional beings, probably demons. Just information people should be aware of. Look this stuff up. In some versions of the story, the ring was made of brass and iron, carved with the name of God, and set with 4 jewels. In later versions, the ring simply bore the symbol now called the Star of David. Now remember, this is the symbol that's on the Israeli flag. 6-pointed star with the 2 lines below and the 2 lines above. Symbol on the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Kabbalahs. Even the pentagon's in the shape of a pentagon. It's supposed to be like a witch's circle is a pentagon. Coincidence? I think not. Works on demonology typically depict the pattern of the seal as being 2 concentric circles with a number of mystical signets between the inner and outer circle, and various more or less complex geometric shapes within the inner circle. In one Arabic story, it is claimed that the demon Shak deceived one of Solomon's sisters into giving him the ring. Shak then ruled in his stead for 40 days, or years in some versions, while Solomon wandered the country in poverty. Alchemy, which is magic, mixing of chemicals and stuff. In alchemy, the combination of fire and water symbols, up and down triangles, is known as the Seal of Solomon. The symbol is representative of the combination of opposites and transmutation. By combining the alchemical symbols of fire, upward triangle, and water, downward triangle, the alchemic symbols for earth and air are also created. So that's their flag. And they do want to rebuild King Solomon's temple. So I keep saying there's more to reality than people know. All right, I think I got one last document. I'll try to be brief. but magical signs of the Jewish Kabbalah. The six-pointed star, Babylonian witchcraft, and the Hollywood perdition of Jerry Seinfeld and associates. You can't make this up. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do? Even the great abominations that the house of Israel committeth here. Ezekiel 8.6 in the Bible. Ha! Kabbalism is the symbol of Jewish mysticism and magic and is the fundamental element in modern witchcraft. Man alive, all the things I've been saying because of my investigation, I find in these documents. Virtually all the great witches and sorcerers of this century were Kabbalists. William Shonabend in the Dark Side of Freemasonry book. Look up this document. Pause your computer. 33 pages, which is weird. It's 33 degrees in the Freemasons. Moving on. In the decades, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, the hottest spiritual trend was the New Age movement. I've been saying that. As we move forward through the first decade of the 21st century, the latest cure-all spiritual phenomenon seems to be the Jewish Kabbalah. New Age mystical practices topped by a philosophical bent of Jewish supremanism. Orthodox Jewish and Pharaonism is rife with Kabbalism, and Jewish rabbis are the Kabbalah's greatest promoters. These are the people promoting the gay agenda, rainbow agenda, New Age, biodiversity, sustainability, controlling the United Nations, and so much more. Celebrities in the Kabbalah. An undercover BBC reporter who infiltrated a London Kabbalah group witnessed singer Madonna and Guy Ritchie chanting mystic spells to cleanse Chernobyl, the site in Ukraine of a nuclear plant disaster in 1986. Other news accounts link entertainers Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, Roseanne Barr, Demi Moore, Shirley MacLaine, and so many more names here. Look up the document. I gotta make this video somewhat short. Lately, former President Bill Clinton has been spotted wearing it. These are those red string wristbands that are part of the Kabbalah. He's a Kabbalist. They say Hillary's a witch and been to Las Vegas pretending witchcraft events. According to Insider, I have to think of his name. I mentioned it in previous videos. Took me a moment. I had to go look it up on my computer. But look up Alex Jones and Larry Nichols, or Larry Nichols and guest speaker with other people. And he was the campaign insider, enforcer for the Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton during Bill's campaigning and all that, governor, president. And he tells all about Hillary going to weekend trips to Vegas involved in witchcraft, and they were afraid it was going to get out. Look it up, don't believe me. But it was important enough, since I'm reading this, that I thought it's worth mentioning. And also, we remember Arizona Wilder with the David Icke video. Look it up, don't believe me. And she was an insider in the Illuminati, involved in the satanic rituals, headed by some being that was half DNA reptilian and human, called Pindar, which is representative by the phallic symbol, the obelisk, I guess. Part of this mystery school of Babylon religion. So when we look at Israel and Zionism and this New World Order and New Age and gay agenda and trying to destroy Christianity and bringing us the Luciferian satanic religion, we've got to open up our minds. Basically, if you open up the Bible and read it, you'll see all this information. And then once you get a grip on what the deal is, you'll see the evidence of it everywhere. TV programming, cartoons for kids. You know, it doesn't end. So I thought at the end of this video, I'd just like to check out this document. The Codex Magica. That's the website. Where my finger is. And here's the website too. If you can't find it, and of course you can look up the title. But I thought it might behoove us just to take a little peek at this. Things that it says, that my research says that this stuff is real. So much of it. I can't believe everybody's lying except for the Zionist, Jewish, Kabbalah, magic, witchcraft people. Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger Groups, Council of Foreign Relations, Carnegie Foundation, Heritage Foundation, Club of Rome, and I could go on for a while with the names. So here it says, Kathleen Harris became a famous household icon as Florida's Republican Secretary of State during the bizarre 2000 election snafu. Republican bigwig and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is reported to be a Kabbalah advocate. Just call it witchcraft. And some say conservative talk show Rush Limbaugh and his rabbi are also into the Kabbalah. So is Rush Limbaugh a Jewish guy? The Jerry Seinfeld Show and the producer of Seinfeld Show was Larry David, a Jewish guy. All 4 of the cast were Jews. And Kabbalist hand signs, occult language, and magic rituals were covertly planted in many episodes. Republican Party spokesman and former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, shows here wearing his Judaism skullcap and is into New Age Kabbalistic magic and is a paid spokesman for Zionist interest. Remember, I looked up Newton Gingrich in the 666 calculator. I don't know why. I'm certain I'm a little psychic. I've had a lot of instances of that. But I just couldn't get over not being able to show it because I read some things that he did which told me he was 666. So a seriously practicing satanic person. So anyways, I went on Wikipedia and his name's not Newt Gingrich, it's McPherson. And McPherson was 666 and in a 666 numerology calculator online. What's the odds of that? Eric Schmidt, CEO for Google, 666. Meir Panot, the guy who acted to conspire to create the European Union behind all those countries back, 666. Monsanto, 666. Computer, 666. Go look up 666 numerology calculator and see the long list of words. I think witchcraft is 666. It's just crazy. Okay, Michael Richards, who portrayed Clancy Kramer in Seinfeld, also seems to relish giving Kabbalistic and Masonic hand signs and gestures. Richard was pictured on the front cover of Scottish Rite Journal. Wow. And inside the publication, he told of how pleased he is to be a Freemason. Wow. There's much more to this thing in Jerusalem and Israel going on. These people mean serious business. I've gone over this stuff in my videos. By the way, the 2 previous videos that I published in this series, let me see what the numbers are. This is important information here. So, on this series, New World Order media and press releases, number 10 and 9, if you look up behind my name, Rick Miracle, you'll see numbers. On the World Zionism and Israeli Zionism, YouTube has demonetized them. So they won't allow commercials. So I was just wondering at what time will I be censored. So I have all this stuff saved on disk, as we know. And if they do decide to shut down my information, I will just find other paths, even going through a different avenue of marketing my videos for sale, if the sites on the internet won't allow me to publish them for free as I have so far. With that in mind, there is a donate button in the comment section. And money does get things done, as we know. These people own our Federal Reserve and have trillions. I just need some money to try to take this to the next level. Maybe doing some speaking engagements, renting some space at a Holiday Inn convention center, a small one, and in advertising locally for people to come and have a conversation, stuff like that. Moving on, Sodom, Egypt, and 21st century Judaism. In one of the most controversial of all many video documentaries I have produced, Cauldron of Abaddon, I stated, from Jerusalem and Israel flow a torrent of satanic evil and mischief endangering the whole world. Imagine me, 2010, I'm reading this stuff. What do I know? I'd only been studying for 5 years. 5 Zionist Jews and their cohorts in the Christian Zionist community were angered over what I said, but they had no response to the mountain of facts presented in the video proving my point. So maybe you want to go look that video up. Who's the author of this thing here? Look up that code at this website. It is undeniable that God himself in Revelation 11-8 declared that the last days, just prior to Christ's return, one of the most wickedest places on earth will be Jerusalem and Israel. In Revelation, God calls Jerusalem Sodom and Egypt. The question is why? Why is Jerusalem and the nation Israel spiritually Sodom and Egypt? I believe it is because the Jewish religion, a religion diametrically opposed to the Old Testament of Moses, Isaac, and Jacob and the prophets. And I'm only reading my highlighted portions. So you certainly should go look up this document for a pretty good, thorough information source of this man's opinion. And look up many others. Watch my videos. Read the books I've been presenting. If the Jews had stuck to the old teachings of the Old Testament, Satan would not have had such terrible inroads. Indeed, if Moses and the prophets had been heeded. Moving on, I'm skipping over a lot, just my highlighted sentences. The Masonic Lodge and the Kabbalah. Freemasonry has long praised the Kabbalah, and its top officials have admitted that the lodge's rituals and teachings are but the offspring of the Jewish tradition. Albert Pike, former Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite, wrote, "One is filled with admiration on penetrating the sanctity of the Kabbalah." Allegedly, the members of the Order of the Knights Templar worshipped Baphomet. Remember that statue, if you've been watching my videos, of the devil with the little children looking at him in awe? Worshipped Baphomet, the hideous male-female Luciferian goat god. And I talk about transgenderism, and in my videos, New York City saying it could be a $250,000 fine to misidentify, call somebody a he who wants to be a she, or somebody a she who wants to be a he, or don't dare call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner. Hey, Bruce, in the dress, come over here. So they got this male thing, new age thing, female thing, with the god, half man, half woman. There's more to what meets the eye here. Conducted blasphemous ceremonies, which included urinating on a cross and homosexual sodomy. Freemasonry is Judaism. In 1855, the renowned Rabbi Isaac Weiss wrote, "Freemasonry is a Jewish establishment." The Jewish Tribune newspaper in 1927 in an editorial stated, "Freemasonry is based on Judaism." Ray Novosel wrote in Australia, 2004, "Zionist world leaders, men in influential positions in the various Masonic organizations everywhere, have worked hand in glove for a universal world revolution which will bring in a one-world church and a one-world government." And I've been going over this stuff in my videos for hundreds of hours, if you go back and look at them. There are many common themes and ideas of Masonic and Jewish rituals, symbols, and the word 13. So here's a Freemasonic handshake and a 6-part pointed Jewish star on their flag. So like I said, it's an invaluable resource, this document. The late Pope John Paul II was a believer in Jewish Kabbalah. On March 22, 1984, the Pope received members of the infamous B'nai B'rith Freemasonic Lodge in New York City, which made up exclusively of influential Jews at the Vatican. I am proud to be a Mason, writes Rabbi Seymour Adis, 32 Degrees, in this issue of New Age magazine. The name of this magazine has since been changed to the Scottish Rite Journal to hide the connection of the Masons with the occultic New Age movement. I've showed those New Age magazines in my videos. Just a brief look here. If you go on my Freemasonry and Satanism, book review, the New Age magazine, you'll find these. I collected them over the years. But these are Freemasonic pamphlets called the New Age, if you can believe that. Everything I'm telling you. This one is 1970, 1962, 1949. New Age. This is a Freemasonic. Look at the columns here. These are Freemasonic lodges. 1949. I went over these in previous videos. October 1934. The New Age magazine. And it says in these things they want to destroy Christianity. Make no mistake. The New Age magazine, 1927. Back then they weren't hiding who they were. And here's this rabbi in one of the New Age magazine, says he's proud to be a Mason. So without a doubt, we got the connection here. Why they have so much worldwide power, why they control our politicians. The politicians come from the Masonic lodges. Way back in George Washington's day, there wasn't the Republicans and Democrats. It was the Masons and the Anti-Masons. The Anti-Masons were the Christians. The Masons were the Luciferians, into magic witchcraft and powerful, things, gaining wealth and control in the United States, creating a country, a power base. Anyways, there was a final battle, and the Masons would even murder the anti-Masons to keep them out of politics. And later on, they vowed never again would an anti-Mason, non-Mason, be in the House of Congress or House of Representatives or presidents or anything. These people are in charge. So I don't know if anybody makes it in that's not a Mason. Just stuff people should know, FYI. All right, here we go on. Demons, magic, and mysticism in the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah contains such power and demonic teaching. It is more than enough to give the ideology and driving force needed to lead the world astray and to keep such an evil conspiracy alive through the centuries. The Kabbalah is a teaching source of the Freemasons as well as other groups, and that would be John Turrell, publisher, The Dove. Kabbalah, the sacred books of black magic and Orthodox Judaism, form a large part of the basis of Western secret societies, from Rosicrucianism to Freemasons to the Order of Templianus. Kabbalism itself derived from the sorcery of ancient Babylon and the Pharaoh Egypt. A lot of powerful stuff here. That was Craig Himbacher in a book called Blood on the Altar. Kabbalism is a system of Jewish mysticism and magic and is the foundational element in modern witchcraft. Virtually all of the great witches and sorcerers of this century were Kabbalists. William Shonoben, The Dark Side of Freemasonry. The Hebrew Kabbalah is a series of occultic writings that are as demonic as any incantation ever uttered in witchcraft. The Apocalypse Chronicles, James Lloyd. Sorcery is commonplace in the depraved religious rituals of Kabbalism Judaism. Here is a rabbi is seen carrying a chicken off to be sacrificed in a voodoo Santeria-type ritual during the Jewish festival of Yom Kippur. So here's this rabbi carrying off this chicken to do a voodoo type ritual. I'm just going to show you pictures. You can look up this document. I think I've done my job. This belief system of coming of a Jewish utopia, drink some water, fits in well with the teachings of the Illuminati. It's all connected. There were Jews behind Wushta, founder of the Order of the Illuminati. David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of the newly formed nation of Israel, performs the first sign of a select master mason. I've seen the books. I've made videos of these books in my Freemason and Satanism series. And you can see this is the sign they use for Freemasons. I surrender. And here's the president of Israel, prime minister. And Ben-Gurion, a dedicated Marxist-Leninist, is quoted as saying, "I am in favor of Bolshevism." Remember, these are the people, the Jewish Bolsheviks, who went into Russia in 1917 and killed the Tsar and his family brutally, and then shot and killed and beheaded many people. But in over 10 years, about 100 million people died in Russia, Christians and other good people. They destroyed the Christian churches, but not the Jewish temples. Then they proceeded to start shipping these Yiddish people to the United States of America in droves, and not really allowing too many other people to immigrate at those times. Those Yiddish Jewish people were arrogant and trampling over everybody in New York City. They were making fun and singing nasty songs and taking over theaters and buying businesses. And they had support from some people in high places, including the Federal Reserve, which was owned by the Rothschilds, our own money. They got loans and money probably to buy up all of our country. You can't make this stuff up. Look up the documents. This illustration from Mackey's Encyclopedia Masonry dates the founding of Jews of the Royal Order of the Freemason in Palestine. Wow, a couple thousand years ago. Right after Jesus. And then we have the Temple of Solomon. And a lot of this stuff is in that other video I made of the Phoenix journals. So the endless amount of information that I researched is what I'm showing, and sharing on this series, the New World Order, media, and press releases. America, go to hell. Zionism is racism. Blood ritual. So much in this document, if you go look it up. And some say the word and name of Fox has hidden Kabbalistic significance. Numerology, the letter Fox in the English alphabet, is equal to the sum of 666. So the symbols are everywhere. And they use the sun's rays as part of their symbols. If you look at the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, you'll see the sun's rays. They've replaced all of our Christmas decorations with the Jewish menorah, the 7-pointed candlestick thing. All this is magical stuff. The 6-pointed star on the Israeli flag. Do I need to say anything? There's so much more ugliness to this whole thing. You can see these secret hand signs they use. Secret hand signs they use. Secret hand signs they use. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu with Kisnet leader, and they have the secret hand sign. Netanyahu, the guy who said in Fink's Bar what they want to do to America. Look it up. The finger to the head like this apparently is another sign. The Tree of Life. Jewish comedian Jerry Seinfeld strikes a decidedly Kabbalist pose, and is well known in entertainment circles that Jerry Seinfeld, indeed, of all of the performers in TV popular Seinfeld sitcom, practice Kabbalah magic and ritual. I didn't know any of this stuff on this document. So I keep saying all this stuff. All these people with these secret hand signs. I guess making it clear to people. If you want to pay attention. And it didn't take much effort to go search this document. You got this name of it there. But these are the kinds of things you're going to find inside. Look at the triangle in George's hand. Apparently, Nelson Mandela, a South African leader, was a Mason, showing symbols. Anne Rice, writer of the popular vampire series. Mr. Spock, oh my gosh, they're messing with my show. A Star Trek character played by Leonard Nimoy became famous for giving the Vulcan greeting with his right hand. Nimoy, a Jewish person, says that the sign is the same gesture given in Jewish synagogue when the rabbi and elders bring out the Holy of Holies. And one last document here, I didn't know I had here, is Pink Floyd's Roger Waters urges Israel to tear down the wall. This is 2006, so I'll just save it for that batch of stuff. I'll just show you the document. So my point is, with all this information of reviewing my own documents over the many years, there's more than meets the eye. And I really firmly believe we the people need to wake up. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.